young characters, right? It's just they end up acting from an emotional basis instead of having the ability to step back from those and really look at all possibilities. They get very tunnel visioned into this is the only way, this is the only thing that's going to save me. And she eventually cracks under that pressure.
For their final production of the 2024 season, The Ties That Bind, the Nashville Opera is presenting Gaetano Donizetti's classic bel canto opera Lucia di Lammermoor. It is a tragic drama based on a famous book by Sir Walter Scott and set in the deep Scottish moors, featuring riveting drama, beautiful singing, and perhaps the most famous mad scene in all of opera. For this role, they have brought Soprano Rainelle Krause, a rising star on the international opera stage. Hailed as having a bright, ringing coloratura that is enough to instill fear into any living being, Soprano Rainelle Krause has enjoyed great critical acclaim. Largely, these performances have been as Mozart's famous power soprano, the Queen of the Night. Here in Nashville, she is breaking into a new and perhaps much more challenging role of Lucia in the mad scene. We were lucky to ask Krause a few questions before a rehearsal for the performance.
Thank you so much again for joining us. I guess my first question is, can you just talk a little bit about how you first came to be Queen of the Night? What drew you to the role, and how did you vocally make it your own?
So there was never any question coming up in school that I was a coloratura soprano. You know, it's like some singers, depending on what the voice wants to do and what the color is and, you know, sort of development with age and all these kind of things, it can be a little more flexible or fluid. Not me. It was very obvious. I was like, oh, you sing high and fast and it's easy. Okay, great. But Queen actually felt very inaccessible to me for a long time. And so I actually remember I had started to look at it, and also some of the teachers that I had worked with were like, oh, God, don't start with Queen. You'll get pigeonholed. It's all you're ever going to do. And at the same time, I was thinking, I would love to work. Work would be great. That sounds great to me. And so I started looking at it because I felt like there was no reason why I shouldn't be able to sing Queen. But my voice really kind of topped out at an E, and I didn't know really how to get past it. And so I did this program called Opera Works in 2013, where I met Kate Conklin, and she's comes from an Alexander background, but also she's a incredibly accomplished vocalist herself, and she sort of pulls together a lot of different disciplines. And so that was the first time that I met her, and she said, okay, so, like, what do you want to work on while you're here? And I said, well, I'd really like to make Queen more comfortable. I can kind of squeak out the F, but it doesn't feel comfortable. I don't really know what's going on. And in one session with her, she had me vocalizing up to like a high A flat. I was like, oh, who knew that was there? Wow, that's going to make the F a lot easier.
Yes.
And it's funny, I still work with her today. We've been working together for over 10 years, and she is one of the main members of the team of people that I consult about my continued vocal growth and the things that I want to do. I was on the phone with her 2 days before I came here. And so she was really the one that helped me access the extended top with enough ease that I felt comfortable. And of course, at that point, if it's comfortable and available, and I always felt like it kind of fit me personality wise, that's a niche in the market.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at, okay, what am I good at and what can I get paid for? Queen is kind of top of the list for coloraturas, if it's something that really is comfortable. And so I started putting it into my audition packages. I didn't get management until I was almost 30. And when that happened, my manager at the time sent me over to Europe to do some exploratory auditions in conjunction with another agency over there. So it was all kind of shepherded, which was great. I'm sort of glad that it took so long for me to get there, and that I did it with a series of invitations. Just for me, that worked out better. The auditions went really well. And basically, once I had Queen on my resume, even before I'd performed it, once it was just on the resume that someone trusted me enough to sing Queen, then everything sort of kicked off. And my role debut, is actually a wild story. I was scheduled to make my role debut as Queen of the Night. I had sung the arias in concert with some places, and I felt very comfortable with them, but I'd never done it in a full production. And so Deutsche Oper Berlin had me scheduled to do a number of performances with them. So I flew over on a Thursday. I got one night of sleep. I had a rehearsal Friday morning at Deutsche Oper. I'm like, okay. And I was with my husband and my sister was there, and it was close to Christmas time. And it's like, oh, it was great. Okay. And so I figured, okay, I've got the whole weekend. I'm supposed to have the debut on a Monday. I said, okay, great. Now I can really settle myself and get myself prepared and like get everything figured out. This is a big deal. This is my European debut. This is my role debut. This is, I was really nervy about it. So after that morning rehearsal on Friday, I got a call at lunchtime from Staatsoper Berlin, different opera company, who call me, not my agent, just me, and say, oh, Frau Krause, well, we understand that you are singing with our colleagues at Deutsche Oper for their Queen of the Night. Is there any chance that you could sing in our production of Magic Flute tonight?
Wow.
And I said, what? And so, I mean, I said, yes, let me check with my agent. Let me see what's going on. So I called my agent, and he gave me great advice. I called him and I was like, do you know about this? Do you know what's going on? He was like, oh, the shot's over. Well, if you can do it, then you should. And if you can't, then you really should not. I was like, okay, thanks, helpful. But I felt good. I had sung a tiny bit in rehearsal that morning. Like, keep in mind, I've been in the country less than 24 hours. I'm jet lagged out of my mind, exhausted. And now I have enough adrenaline to get me through the next month. And so we made our way across town through Black Friday traffic, through it was nuts. And I showed up, and we didn't tell them that it was my role debut. So sang it. It went beautifully. Everyone was so kind to me. And it was a production that didn't have any dialogue. So it was really kind of plug and play. I was being flown around in a cage. So there was very little staging I had to do, which was great. And yeah, I sang. It went very well. And I still remember afterwards, the administrator who'd been shepherding me around backstage came up and said, oh, thank you so much, Frau Krause, you've saved our show. Thank you. And I was like, no, thank you. This was my role debut. And I just watched all of the color drain out of his face. It's like, okay, congratulations. But after that, it went well. They hired me back for the next few seasons. And then things really kicked off. I had a run of queens in Basel through the pandemic, which was also nuts. I mean, theaters were open and closed and closed and open, and we've got mask rules, and then we don't, and then we do, and then we, and everyone's terrified, of course, especially being around a bunch of other singers where it's like, oh, I hope I don't accidentally kill my colleagues by spraying aerosols everywhere, so that was a wild time, but we performed quite a bit through the 2020, I think all the way through the 2022 season with all the cancellations and reschedulings. And then it's basically been Queen ever since with a few departures. So it's nice to be here and have a shot to dig into wildly different music and a very different character and really stretch and grow.
In Nashville, Krause will give her first performance of Donizetti's central bel canto role, Lucia di Lammermoor. The character is an emotionally fragile woman caught in a feud between her own family and the competing family of Ravenwoods. Since its premiere in Naples in 1835, and especially in the middle of the 20th century, a number of sopranos have made their careers performing this role, including Lily Pons, Maria Callas, Joan Sutherland, and Beverly Sills. By embarking on this role, Krause is entering into a long history and tradition of performance practice in the mad scene of the third act.
How do you kind of make that change from singing Queen so much to singing Lucia? Is there a difference in your warm up, in your preparation? How do you go about that?
Not so much a difference in warm-ups or anything. I mean, the voice is the voice, you know. However, the way that I've coached it, I specifically went to a coach that I really trust and work very well with in New York. And while I was there, I said, look, I want to seriously look at this with you because, of course, like I'd sung Regnava in undergrad and through masters and, just sort of the rep that everyone learns. But I'd never looked at the entire role, and there is a lot. I mean, Queen is a sprint. You go on stage, you go from 0 to 60, you have 2 minutes to scream your head off,
Mm,
and then you get an hour to rest. And then you come back on stage and you do it again. And then that's basically the opera. There's the
mhm,
quintet at the end, but like vocally, in terms of the feat of it, that's it.
mm,
And so I was really used to sprinting, and Lucia is a marathon.
mm,
So it was much more about looking at true efficiency of the vocal apparatus through the entirety of the show, and a lot of not getting caught up in any particular emotional state and trusting that the emotions that you want to allow the audience to feel are sort of baked into the score as is. I don't have to do very much. I don't have to get in there and like, oh, I'm so artistic. I have to put my spin. It's like, no, the art is in there.
mm,
Donizetti wrote it.
mhm,
So all you have to do is sing it. And so that has been, it's been interesting. And of course, now that we're getting it on its feet, it's different than running it in a coaching in the studio.
mhm,
It's with more dramatic impetus, but keeping the primacy of the voice. I'm finding ways to create a performance that is fulfilling for me, but not in a way that's going to compromise through any sort of tension.
mm,
And what that does when you have a real congruency through, I mean, all the way from the way that your head is coordinating on top of your spine and the way that the rest of your body is following and all of the thoughts and intentions and the understanding of what's going on and looking at what your character is going through and what she wants. I mean, really going through these actions, it all sort of bubbles up and organizes itself. So as long as I'm setting the correct conditions for artistry to occur,
mm,
then I can sort of get out of the way and let everything do it a little bit on its own. It's
mhm,
sort of like a really good golf swing. Okay. So, seriously, I talked to this woman who was a performance coach for the top level opera singers and PGA Tour golfers. And she said it is the exact same head game in performance. Because what you want is not necessarily a shoving type of muscular power.
mhm,
You're really allowing everything else to do the work for you. And all you are doing is, yeah, setting the correct like responsiveness and suppleness. It's not relaxation. Everything is alive and ready to work in a very particular way. Um, and so it means that when it's going really well, it kind of feels effortless. There's a lot of effort going on,
right.
but it feels like you could do it all night,
Mm,
which is
mhm.
really what you want for something like this.
Yes, yes, definitely. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Going back to Lucia a little bit more, can you tell us a bit about her character?
Oh, poor Lucia. Man, she has a rough go.
Mm,
So we're playing her very young, which I think is smart and also true to the source material. She's around 17. She's very fragile. Her mother has recently passed. Her father has also passed. We don't know when. And so her brother's in charge. And her brother's not that much older than she is. So he's inherited this estate and he's very stressed out about it. He's made a bunch of poor decisions because he hasn't had good guidance. And Lucia, for someone who is so sensitive to begin with, when she's in this complete just maelstrom of masculine power, she really has nothing to tether herself to. And so the first bit of safety that she sees in Edgardo, her love interest. Of course, it's star-crossed lovers, families are fighting, huge feud. So naturally, I fall in love. And I think she sees him, maybe not consciously, but she sees him as her way out from under her brother's thumb and out from under the expectations of making a political alliance against her will, out from under oppressive is the only word for it, because it's not just her brother, it's also the priest who has good intentions, but still is complicit in taking every bit of agency and power away from her for her own good, according to them. And so she's young, she's very prone to sort of getting whipped up in emotions in herself and in others. She's very self-recriminating. She takes on a lot of blame that I don't think is hers to take, but taking on that sort of blame really fuels her actions through the piece and creates this pressure cooker through the entirety of the piece. So she starts off not doing well and continues to really not do well.
Yeah, and it all kind of culminates.
Yeah. She has an absolutely psychotic break, which I love the way that John is building the pressure to that. In an opera from this time period, things can get heavily stylized sometimes, which can be very beautiful and very effective. But I really like what we're doing here, because he is intentionally ratcheting up just this pressure on her from all sides, from these institutions that she trusts. She wants to trust her brother, even though he's pretty manipulative. And she wants to trust her priest, who is sort of trying to look at the bigger picture, and he also has incomplete information. And it's your typical tragedy sort of formula here. It's like, no one's got all of the information, and everyone, no one thinks that they're the villain. But that sort of pressure, especially on young characters, right? It's just they end up acting from an emotional basis instead of having the ability to step back from those and really look at all possibilities. They get very tunnel visioned into this is the only way, this is the only thing that's going to save me. And she eventually cracks under that pressure.
Yeah. Which will be very, what should the audience be listening for that?
You should listen for the flute. Through the entirety of the piece, it gets set up very early. There's a lot of interplay between Lucia and the flute that I think it's really beautiful foreshadowing through the entirety of the piece. I think originally it was written for glass harmonica, which had, it's the wheels with the glass and the water, and it has a very ethereal kind of sound. It also has associations to madness, because I believe there was lead used in its construction, and so oftentimes players of this would end up getting lead poisoning. Not great. And it's a beautiful sound, but the flute is much more responsive, like the voice. So there's a little delay in a glass harmonica as you go. So you're sort of constrained in what you can do and the tempo you can take and how quickly you can change things or take time. And so the flute is much more responsive, and I think a little more voice-like. So in this production, we're using flute. I cannot wait to hear her. I cannot wait to work with her. And especially in the mad scene, a number of themes come back. The love theme from the first act, where Lucia and Edgardo are professing their love for each other. It's very iconic, and that comes back. recurring themes happen, but also the flute steps forward. And I think in the mad scene, Lucia is hearing it and no one else is. And she is responding to it and playing with it, and no one else knows what's going on. So I think it's quite chilling.
Absolutely. Wow. Yes, the audience will definitely need to look out for that, because I love that. I love that. That is. Okay, I guess going back to the Queen for a second, you performed it here last year. Last year. How are you feeling returning to Nashville? What's it been like to work with director Holmes? How has all of that been for you?
I'm thrilled to be back in Nashville. Really, I had an excellent experience last year, which was great. We had a lot of fun. It was a wonderful show. And so when he invited me to come do Lucia, it's such a sense of safety, right? And trust on his part, right? Lucia is a big girl role, And a lot of times it's very difficult to start getting cast as other things apart from Queen. That's in part because Queen is a very oh, you sing Queen of the Night, and everyone does magic flute. So just, chuck, 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 you just sing Queens. But also, I think it can be difficult for companies to want to take a risk on a singer. It's like, okay, so you can sing Queen, but can you really sing bel canto repertoire? And John believed in me. And I can't think of a company that I would rather do a debut like this at. I feel very supported by my colleagues. I feel very comfortable with stage management and the crew, and everything kind of runs like a well-oiled machine. I feel a lot of respect from John in this role. He's always there to help me out, but it feels very much like a collaboration of how we want to create this role, which means a lot to me. So, and Dean, working with Dean Williamson is a dream. He is a real singer's conductor. And he and I have been talking about this for months and months now, just talking about the preparation and his ideas and my ideas and how we want to bring this together. And so I really feel, just sort of shepherded through this process, but in a way that still grants me a lot of artistic agency.
Which is nice, getting to collaborate and have that.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the majority of the questions that I have for you, but thank you so much. It's been so fascinating.